His hands trembled as she reached for his collar, her fingers brushing against his neck. "Why are you shaking?" Isabella whispered, her eyes never leaving his as she adjusted his tie with practiced precision. The question hung between them, loaded with unspoken history and possibilities neither dared to acknowledge, until today. Thomas Reid stared at his reflection in the elevator's polished doors, barely recognizing the man looking back at him. At 42, the lines around his eyes had deepened, silver threads now prominently streaking through his dark hair. His suit, purchased years ago for rare special occasions, felt uncomfortably tight across his shoulders. "It's just an interview," he muttered to himself as the numbers climbed toward the executive floor of Meridian Innovations. But they both knew it wasn't just an interview. It was everything, his chance to finally provide the stability his daughter deserved after 3 years of struggle since Claire's death. The elevator chimed, doors sliding open to reveal a sleek reception area where everything gleamed with purpose and success. Thomas tugged at his tie again, knowing something wasn't right but unable to fix it. His fingers wouldn't cooperate, trembling slightly as anxiety tightened his chest. "Mr. Reid?" A receptionist smiled professionally. "Ms. Vega will see you shortly. Would you like some water while you wait?" "No, thank you," he managed, settling into a chair that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Thomas checked his phone, a text from Mrs. Hernandez, his elderly neighbor who watched Sophia when he couldn't be there. "Good luck today. Sophia says to remember your superhero pose before you go in." A small smile broke through his nervousness. His 9-year-old daughter had been coaching him for days, making him stand with his hands on his hips like the superheroes she adored. "It makes you brave, Dad," she'd insisted. The sound of confident footsteps pulled his attention upward. A woman emerged from the hallway, engaged in conversation with an assistant. Even before she turned fully in his direction, Thomas felt an inexplicable shift in the atmosphere, something electric and immediate. Isabella Vega commanded attention without effort. Her tailored charcoal suit spoke of authority, but it was her presence that filled the room, focused, intelligent, and unexpectedly warm when her dark eyes met his. "Mr. Reid?" She extended her hand. "Isabella Vega. I apologize for the slight delay." Thomas stood quickly, too quickly, knocking his portfolio to the floor, papers spilling across the polished marble. "I'm so sorry," he mumbled, dropping to gather them. She knelt beside him without hesitation, helping collect the scattered documents. "No harm done," she said, her voice carrying a hint of amusement but no judgment. As they stood, Isabella's gaze lingered on his tie, which had twisted awkwardly during his fumbling. "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward the crooked knot. Before he could respond, her hands were at his collar, deftly unraveling and reconstructing his tie with efficient movements. Thomas stood frozen, acutely aware of her proximity, the subtle scent of her perfume, something with notes of vanilla and amber, and the strange intimacy of the moment. That's when she noticed his hands. "Why are you shaking?" she asked quietly, her eyes lifting to meet his. The question wasn't merely about his trembling fingers. Somehow, in that moment of unexpected connection, Isabella Vega had seen through his carefully constructed facade to the man beneath, terrified of failure, of disappointment, of not being enough. "It's been a while since I've done this," Thomas admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. Interviews. Corporate settings. Ties. Life, he didn't add. Something shifted in her expression, recognition, perhaps. "Come," she said simply. "Let's talk in my office." Isabella Vega hadn't planned to personally interview candidates for the project manager position. As CEO of Meridian Innovations, her schedule was perpetually overflowing with higher priority demands. But when her HR director mentioned Thomas Reid's application, highlighting both his impressive early career and the significant gap following his wife's death, something compelled her to make an exception. Now, watching him settle nervously into the chair across from her desk, she wondered about that impulse. Your resume shows exceptional work at Westlake Technologies, she began, followed by freelance consulting for the past 3 years. That's quite a transition. Thomas nodded, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. My wife passed away unexpectedly. I have a daughter who needed stability more than I needed a corner office. The straightforward answer, devoid of self-pity, caught her attention. Isabella had conducted thousands of interviews over her career, becoming adept at detecting rehearsed responses and calculated vulnerability. Thomas Reid offered neither. And now, she asked. Now she needs security, financial security, health insurance, college savings, things I can't provide consistently as a freelancer. He paused. And maybe I need something too. Purpose beyond survival. Isabella studied him thoughtfully. His qualifications were solid but not exceptional compared to other candidates. Yet something about his presence, a quiet determination beneath the nervousness, resonated with her. The position requires occasional travel and long hours during project launches, she said. How would you manage that as a single parent? For the first time, confidence replaced uncertainty in his expression. The same way I've managed everything else since Claire died, with planning, backup plans for the backup plans, and a small community of people who help when needed. My daughter comes first, always, but I've never missed a deadline in my professional life. That wouldn't change. Isabella nodded, appreciating his honesty. Tell me about your greatest professional challenge and how you overcame it. As Thomas described navigating a particularly complex product launch at Westlake, Isabella found herself listening not just to his words but to what lay beneath them, his approach to problem solving, his instinctive prioritization of team cohesion over individual recognition, his ability to adapt when initial strategies failed. By the time their scheduled 30 minutes had elapsed, Isabella had made her decision. I have one more question, Mr. Reid, she said, leaning forward slightly. Why Meridian? With your background, several companies would be interested. Thomas considered this, his answer coming slowly. Your company's family leave policies and flexible scheduling options are industry-leading. That matters to me, obviously. But more than that. He gestured toward the wall of her office where Meridian's mission statement was elegantly displayed. You build things that matter. After spending 3 years just trying to keep my life from falling apart, I want to help build something again. Isabella stood, extending her hand. Thank you for your time, Mr. Reid. My assistant will be in touch by the end of the week. As she walked him to the elevator, Isabella made an impulsive decision. Actually, are you available tomorrow evening? We're having a small gathering for the project team you'd be joining. It would be a good opportunity for you to meet them informally. Surprise registered on his face. I'd need to arrange childcare, but yes, I could make that work. Bring your daughter, Isabella said, surprising herself. Several team members bring their children to these events. It's part of our culture. The elevator doors opened, and Thomas stepped inside, his expression a mixture of confusion and cautious hope. Thank you, Ms. Vega. Isabella, she corrected as the doors began to close. And fix your tie before you leave the building. I won't be there to help next time. His startled laugh was the last thing she heard before the doors shut completely. Dad, you're doing it wrong again. Sophia sighed dramatically, her small hands on her hips as she watched Thomas struggle with his tie for the 3rd time. I know, sweetheart, he admitted, unraveling the mangled knot. It's been a while since I've needed to wear one regularly. Their apartment, small but comfortable, was cluttered with the evidence of their rushed preparation. Sophia's rejected outfit options covered her bed, while Thomas's single dress shirt lay freshly ironed on his. Mom used to do it for you, Sophia said matter-of-factly, the observation carrying no sadness, just simple truth. Thomas paused, memories washing over him, Claire straightening his tie each morning, her teasing smile as she'd pull it slightly too tight before loosening it with a kiss. She did, he agreed softly. Is this party important? Sophia asked, already knowing the answer but seeking reassurance. Thomas knelt to her level, abandoning the tie temporarily. It could be. The job would be good for us, stable hours, better pay, health insurance with that orthodontist you might need soon. Sophia ran her tongue over her slightly crooked front teeth. And you'd build cool things again instead of just fixing other people's stuff? That's the hope. He smiled, touching her nose lightly. But tonight is just meeting people. No pressure. If you feel uncomfortable at any point, we leave. Deal? Deal. She studied his tie critically. We should ask Mrs. Hernandez to help with that. 20 minutes later, with his tie properly knotted thanks to their neighbor's assistance, Thomas drove them across town to the address Isabella had. I understand you'd like me to finish the story I started. Here's the continuation. 4 hours later, with Sophia's arm properly set in a purple cast, the color of royalty, Dad, Thomas settled her on the couch with her favorite movies and pain medication that made her drowsy but comfortable. He had just sent an update to his team when the doorbell rang. Thomas opened the door to find Isabella standing there, holding a gift bag and what appeared to be containers of food. I hope I'm not intruding, she said, uncharacteristic uncertainty in her voice. I wanted to check on Sophia. And you? Surprise rendered him momentarily speechless. No, not intruding at all. Please, come in. Their apartment, while clean and comfortable, was modest compared to what he imagined she was accustomed to. If Isabella noticed, she gave no indication as she followed him to the living room where Sophia was dozing. She's on pain medication, Thomas explained quietly. The doctor said the break was clean, should heal well. Sophia stirred at their voices, her eyes widening when she spotted Isabella. Ms. Vega. Look at my royal purple cast, she exclaimed with medication-induced enthusiasm. Isabella smiled, setting down her bags to approach the couch. Very regal. May I sign it when you're feeling better? You brought presents? Sophia asked, eyeing the gift bag. Sophia, Thomas gently admonished, but Isabella waved away his concern. I did, she confirmed, handing over the bag. Nothing extravagant, just some things that might make recovery less boring. Sophia pulled out a beginner's electronics kit, a book of famous women engineers, and a soft throw blanket patterned with constellations. This is awesome, she declared, immediately opening the electronics kit despite her awkward cast. While Sophia explored her gifts, Isabella turned to Thomas. I brought dinner too. Nothing special, just from that Italian place near the office. I thought cooking might be difficult tonight. The thoughtfulness of the gesture caught Thomas off guard. That's incredibly kind of you. You didn't need to do any of this. Isabella's expression softened. I know what it's like to be worried about someone you love while trying to maintain professional composure. It's challenging. There was something in her tone, a personal understanding that hinted at experiences she hadn't shared. Before Thomas could respond, Sophia called for his help with the electronics kit, and the moment passed. They ate dinner together, Sophia dominating the conversation with dramatic retellings of her emergency and detailed explanations of her science project plans. Throughout the meal, Thomas found himself watching Isabella, the way she listened intently to Sophia, asking thoughtful questions and treating the 9-year-old's interests with genuine respect. When Sophia's medication finally overcame her excitement and she drifted to sleep, Thomas walked Isabella to the door. Thank you, he said simply. Not just for tonight, but for creating a workplace where I didn't have to choose between being there for my daughter and keeping my job. Isabella paused at the threshold. That's not charity, Thomas. It's good business. Parents who know their children are prioritized become loyal, committed employees. She smiled slightly. Though I admit, I don't typically make house calls with dinner. Why did you? The question slipped out before he could reconsider. In the soft light of the entryway, something vulnerable flickered across Isabella's usually composed features. Because 3 years ago, I broke my wrist rock climbing. I had recently been promoted to CEO. I lived alone, had no family nearby, and was too proud to ask for help. I spent a week eating takeout directly from containers because I couldn't manage proper cooking, dropping things constantly, and pretending at work that everything was fine. She shrugged lightly. No one should have to manage alone if they don't have to. The admission, personal in a way their previous interactions hadn't been, shifted something between them. Thomas suddenly saw beyond the confident CEO to the woman who understood isolation and the stubborn pride that often accompanied it. "Well, your timing was perfect," he said. "And the company much appreciated." Isabella nodded, stepping into the hallway. "Good night, Thomas. Take tomorrow off if Sophia needs you." "That's not a suggestion." As he closed the door behind her, Thomas realized he was smiling. Over the following months, something subtle shifted in Thomas and Isabella's professional relationship. Nothing inappropriate or overtly personal, just a deeper understanding, occasional shared glances during meetings when someone said something particularly absurd, coffee brought to his desk when she knew he'd been working late, project feedback delivered with a warmth that hadn't been there initially. For Thomas, these small moments became anchors in his increasingly busy life. Meridian was thriving, and his role had expanded to include leadership of a major new initiative. Sophia had healed completely, throwing herself into the company's STEM program where she flourished among like-minded children. Life had found a rhythm that, while not perfect, felt sustainable and occasionally even joyful. The crushing grief of losing Claire had gradually transformed into something gentler, a bittersweet remembrance that could coexist with present happiness. Which was why the panic that gripped him on the morning of Meridian's annual charity gala caught him by surprise. "Dad, you're doing it wrong again," Sophia sighed, watching him struggle with his bow tie. At nearly 10 now, her patience for his sartorial challenges had worn thin. "Just use a clip-on. It's a formal event, sophomore. No clip-ons allowed." He tried again, the silk slipping through his fingers. "I should have practiced." Sophia flopped dramatically onto his bed. "Why are you so nervous? It's just a work party." It was just a work party, a black tie fundraiser for Meridian's educational foundation, where Thomas would present the results of his team's year-long project to potential donors. Important professionally, but nothing that explained the flutter of anxiety in his stomach or his suddenly uncooperative hands. The doorbell saved him from answering. "That's Mrs. Hernandez," he said. "She's staying with you tonight, remember?" "Because you'll be too late and too fancy," Sophia recited, rolling her eyes good-naturedly. "I remember." After settling Sophia with their neighbor and extracting promises of reasonable bedtime and limited screen time, Thomas headed downtown to the historic hotel hosting the gala. He was early, intentionally so, wanting time to review his presentation points and calm his inexplicable nerves. The ballroom was still being prepared when he arrived, staff arranging centerpieces and adjusting lighting. Thomas found a quiet corner to collect his thoughts, absently tugging at his still imperfect bow tie. "Still having trouble with formal neckwear, I see." Isabella's voice startled him. He turned to find her standing nearby, elegant in a deep blue gown that contrasted strikingly with her usual business attire. For a moment, words failed him entirely. Yes. Never mastered the bow tie, he finally managed. She approached, amusement warming her dark eyes. "May I?" Without waiting for his response, Isabella stepped closer, her fingers deftly working at his collar. The echo of their first meeting was unmistakable, her hands steady, his inexplicably trembling. "Why are you shaking?" she asked softly, her eyes lifting to meet his. Unlike their first encounter, Thomas recognized the deeper question beneath her words. This time, he had no ready answer, no interview anxiety to blame, no professional uncertainty to hide behind. "I don't know," he admitted, the honesty between them now familiar enough to be comfortable. "Old habits, maybe." Isabella finished with his tie, her hands lingering briefly at his collar before she stepped back. "You've done remarkable work this year, Thomas. Tonight is a celebration of that." "It's been a good year," he agreed. "For both of us, I think." Something unspoken passed between them, acknowledgement of the gradual transformation of their relationship from strictly professional to something more complex, hovering in that undefined space between friendship and possibility. The moment was interrupted by staff announcing the ballroom was opening for early arrivals. Isabella touched his arm lightly. "I should greet the board members. Your presentation is scheduled for 8:30. Try to enjoy yourself before then." As the evening progressed, Thomas found himself more at ease than he'd anticipated. His presentation was well received, generating substantial donation commitments for the foundation. Colleagues congratulated him, board members engaged him in conversation, and through it all, he was aware of Isabella, commanding the room with graceful authority, yet somehow always within his line of sight. Near midnight, as the event began winding down, Thomas stepped onto the hotel's terrace for a moment of quiet. The December air was crisp but not uncomfortable, the city lights creating a backdrop of twinkling constellations below the actual stars. "Hiding from your admirers?" Isabella's voice came from behind him. Thomas turned, smiling. "Taking a breather. It's been a while since I've done the corporate social circuit." She joined him at the railing, close enough that he could detect the subtle scent of her perfume. "You handled it like a natural." The board was impressed, not just with the project results, but with you. High praise coming from you. "I'm not easily impressed," she acknowledged with a small smile. "But you've exceeded every expectation since joining Meridian." Thomas studied her profile against the city lights. "Why did you hire me, Isabella?" "Really? There must have been candidates with more recent experience, fewer complications." She was quiet for a moment, considering. "I recognized something in you during that interview. Resilience, yes, but also integrity. You'd rebuilt your life around what mattered most, your daughter, without bitterness about the career you'd set aside." She turned to face him fully. "Do you know how rare that is? To find someone who understands what truly matters, yet still brings passion to their work?" The sincerity in her voice touched something deep within him. "I was just surviving." "No," she said softly. "You were showing tremendous courage. It's easy to be successful when everything aligns perfectly. It's much harder to find your way forward when life falls apart." Thomas felt a tightness in his throat. "You sound like you're speaking from experience." Isabella's gaze shifted to the city below. "Perhaps I am." After a pause, she continued, "My husband died 6 years ago. Cancer. We'd been building Meridian together since graduate school." The revelation stunned him. In all their conversations, she'd never mentioned a husband, and nothing in the company material suggested she'd had a co-founder. "I'm so sorry," he said quietly. "I had no idea. Few people do. Robert preferred working behind the scenes. When he died, I had to decide whether to sell the company or step into a more visible leadership role." Her voice remained steady, but Thomas could hear the carefully controlled emotion beneath. "I chose to build something from what remained, just as you did." In that moment, Thomas understood the true foundation of their connection, not just professional respect or personal attraction, but the shared experience of reconstructing a life after devastating loss. Without conscious thought, he reached for her hand. Isabella's fingers intertwined with his, neither of them speaking as they stood together in the winter night. Finally, Thomas broke the silence. "Sophia asked me recently if I was happy. It caught me off guard, not just the question, but realizing the answer was yes. Not the same happiness as before, but real nonetheless." Isabella turned toward him, their hands still joined. "And what did you tell her?" "The truth. That happiness comes in different forms throughout life. That I'll always miss her mother, but that doesn't mean I can't find joy in our life now." He paused. That sometimes the most unexpected people help you remember how to be happy again. Something vulnerable and hopeful flickered in Isabella's expression. Unexpected people? Thomas smiled softly. A CEO who fixed my tie when my hands were shaking too badly to manage it myself. Isabella's laugh was quiet but genuine. That tie was truly a disaster. I've improved, he protested lightly. Marginally. Her expression grew more serious. Thomas, I've been very careful to maintain professional boundaries between us, for obvious reasons. I know. I've respected that. But tonight isn't about work, she continued. And I find myself wondering what might be possible beyond those boundaries. The honesty of her statement, direct yet tentative, reflected the courage he'd always admired in her. Thomas felt his heart quicken as he recognized the crossroads before them. I've wondered the same thing, he admitted. For longer than I should probably confess. Isabella smiled, the expression transforming her features with a warmth few at Meridian ever witnessed. Perhaps we should explore those possibilities. Carefully. Respectfully. I'd like that, Thomas said simply. As they stood together on the terrace, the city lights reflecting in Isabella's eyes, Thomas felt the final pieces of his reconstructed life shifting into place, not erasing what came before, but building something new from its foundation. When Isabella reached up to straighten his bow tie one more time, his hands remained perfectly steady. If you enjoyed this story of unexpected connection and second chances, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories that remind us how life's most meaningful moments often arrive when we've stopped looking for them. Sometimes our greatest strengths emerge from our deepest struggles, and sometimes, just sometimes, fixing someone's tie can be the beginning of healing two hearts at once.